Hey everybody, it's Allie. Welcome back to my table for December Daily 2025. This is story number 3. I have an idea and we're going to see if I can make this work. I started kind of trying some things and that's where we're at. All right, so yesterday, story 2 that I shared was this fun page about my mom with the flip up and the pockets and the presents and all the things. So coming into the next day or the next story here, I didn't have a foundation page. I have one that I'm thinking I might use for day 4. That was one that I put together for our product play workshop this year, but I'm not sure if I'm going to leave that as number 4. I might leave it till later in the month where I have more Christmassy related things to share. So one of the things I mentioned yesterday was I have some photos from last week when I was down at my parents' again. This time my sister was there and I brought Anna with me, and my niece Gabrielle was there also. So I have some photos from that I would like to incorporate into my project for my particular story today. This is a good reminder that this project can really be whatever you want it to be, right? You can tell stories from the last month. You can still tell stories from today. There's lots of different options. My goal in this season of life, last couple of years specifically, I would say, my goal is really to tell 25 different stories. And so my 25 stories are going to be a combination. That's what it's going to be this year. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is a full page photo. This is printed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of photo paper. It is 11 inches wide by 8.25 inches tall. You can see that I need to trim off a little bit on the edges there. That's going to be added directly into here. So as I was thinking about, I knew that I wanted to include more photos because I have photos from this past week that I would like to add into a story. And so I was looking at this guy, which was one of the die cuts this year. And while I was looking at that guy, I was also remembering that our travel collection had one of these. And I was thinking, oh, I could do these back to back. You can see that they're a little bit different. The December Daily one is a little bit shorter. It doesn't have this extra piece. So I'm thinking that I'll just trim that off so I can back it front to back. So that I'll be trimming that off, repunching the holes. And then I printed a bunch of 2x2s that I can punch into 1.75. So these can go on top of the circles. The other thing that I'm thinking about doing is that initially I was like, oh, I'll just adhere these two back to back. But as I started looking at this and thinking a little bit more, I think what I would like to do instead is actually have this open up. And then on the inside, I will put additional photos because I have more photos that can fit on here, especially when I'm going to trim that down a little bit. So I'll have to think about how I want to work with some of those. So as I was considering this, I went back into my December Daily stash. One of the things that I had in there was this chipboard piece. I believe this is from last year's Advent calendar. It may have been the year before, but I think it was last year. This is that wonderful 3-inch size and it could fit right on there. The other thing that I'm testing out doing is punching 3-inch circles of pattern paper. This was from a pattern from a previous year. I was just testing it out. This is my bag of some of the stuff from last year that I didn't use last year that I was like, oh, those are ones that I probably really like. There's just more stuff. There's always going to be more stuff, guys. So I was going to check out the patterns there and see if there was anything in with those patterns. But what I also like is I like the outline of a pattern or a solid, like on this side. So I'm thinking that I will do a 3-inch circle punch, which will give me a pattern. And this is messy right now. This is just my testing out. And then I will do a 2-inch circle punch is the next circle. And then I'm looking at this stamp set right here that has the partial circle sentiments already on the stamp set are already in that angle and they can fit right on top of here. So I like the idea that I'm going to have a pattern around the outside. Let me show you what that looks like on a more on a more patterny pattern, a patterny pattern. Let's actually punch one of these guys. Like this one right here. Let's see what that looks like. So this would be, so I'm using multiple circle punches. You could cut these circles out if you wanted to on a silhouette too. Lots of different things that you could do. So I'm thinking of something, yeah, oh, see, that'll be cute. Something like that. So maybe I'll mix patterns. So this is what this will be like on the inside here. You know, this could be over here, just with these extra, with the extra photos that I have. So the photos are, I printed them out in a grid. They are 2 by 2, and then I am punching them with a 1.75 inch, 1.75. Okay, so let's just get all these punched out here. So again, I printed them 2 by 2, and then I'm going to need to figure out which ones do I want to be on the front. I'm going to need to trim that down too, but I'll go ahead and do these. So what I liked about this is it's a variety of different photos from being down at the beach. Some really fun reflection style pictures. So some that were really playful and fun. Other ones that were like, me and the girls watched all of the new Stranger Things episodes. We're super fans. That was super fun. So punching that out and then being able to have that in there as a memory. Sitting around the table was a lot of what we did. I did some coloring, some drawing, some drawing while I was down there too. So just a few different things here, and then a couple photos of we did super casual Thanksgiving this year, and that was great. So I've got my picture of my plate there, picture of me and my sister. Look at that, so fun. So fun. Okay, and then another one by the lights, and then I have that one already there. So what I'm thinking of doing, I need to trim this down, and then it's basically figuring out what patterns do I want to use, what kind of journaling do I want to do. If I have all of these backed, you know, with, let's see, how many do I have here? I might even have more than I can use, because this one's going to end up, so this will need to be trimmed. So I need to think about which ones I could have go on there. So which ones can I repeat? And then I can have some on the other side too. Okay, so I'm going to take this out of the album itself so that we can look at this a little bit closer. But that's my plan. This is my initial plan. This is where I think I'm going. We'll see. As you guys have seen before, it often evolves, and then I'll have this page for the following story. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is just layer these on top of each other and run it through my trimmer. And then repunch these holes. The rest of it is pretty close enough for me anyway. Especially because it's not going to matter because I'm not going to have them adhered back to back. They're just going to be like essentially 2 pages that sit on top of each other. So there is that. Let's go ahead and punch the holes. And then the other thing I want to do is I'm going to cut this out of there so that I have the same thing on one side as I do on the other side. I also had pulled out the number 3 because I was kind of thinking about this could be for story 3. This will probably still be good to use this. I think I'm going to try to just use my X-Acto. There we go. Okay, so now I have two that are exactly the same, so that when I open them up, then this is what will be on the inside, and then I can do whatever. Maybe I won't end up using this, I don't know yet, but I can put my patterns down and I can punch my white circles that I can then stamp the little titles on for the inside parts. Yep. Okay, that's where we're heading. Okay, diving into the process portion here, the first thing that I am doing is I am punching out the pattern circles. So I'm looking through my pattern papers and punching out 3 from each pattern is what I ended up doing. So I'm going to do 3 from that green pattern, and I end up doing a bunch of green patterns. I'm also punching out the white. These are 2-inch circles. I've got the 3-inch is going on the patterns, and then I have the 2-inch, and then I have the 1.75-inch for my photo. So I'm using 3 different circle sizes there. You can see I have a die cut circle that says I will remember. That's actually from the December Stories by the Month kit. I was considering using that, but then decided to not use that one, and I'm going to use Joyful instead. So you can see I'm placing that down on there. I also have one of the vellum wreaths out. I will end up stitching that onto a pattern paper background. I will say that I think a darker color pattern paper works better to have the vellum on top of it. I'm not going to actually end up putting the vellum on this that text-based pattern paper that was in the extra pattern paper pack, but it's a little bit hard to see. I'll be doing some hand stitching to keep that vellum in place. But you can see right there with that pattern behind it, it's kind of hard to see, but I still ended up doing it anyway. But I'm letting you know, just in case you would like to be able to see that vellum wreath a little bit better. That's from the main kit. So you can see my second pattern paper was the text-based pattern paper. My first one was the small green pattern that was in the main kit. The third one that I'm trying here is Merry and Bright. That is from the extra pattern paper pack. I end up not going with that one, but I will cut out one of the Merry and Bright words to use on my number 3 on the other side. I ended up with mainly green and black and white patterns. There's the Fa La La. I'm going to end up using that one instead of the green Merry and Bright. This is one of those things where you can totally decide what you want. You might want to have them all be red. You might want to have them all be craft. You might want to have them all be some other background color. Really, I wanted to keep with the same idea that the front sides of these die cut pages had, where they had an outline around the outside edge. The other pattern that I ended up using was also from the extra pattern paper pack. It was one of the floral ones. I liked having a mixture, so I've got like a kind of a graphic pattern, a text-based pattern, a handwritten text pattern, and then the floral background there. So that's what I am playing around with. I did 3 of each of those, and as I am placing them down on top of my circles, I don't want one pattern to be touching the same pattern, so I'm moving them around on my layout there. Again, the white circles I believe are 2 inches, and my photos are 1.75, and that's kind of what I'm playing around, getting those all laid out on there. This part actually, once you get going, it should go pretty fast. I felt like it took me a while, but that was probably because I was figuring it out as I was going along, kind of trying to decide where I wanted to put things. I'm pretty sure at this point that in the center circle on the second page that I'm going to want to add journaling. So I've just got the white 2-inch circle on there right now. I ended up needing to print out a few more photos. So again, I printed those pictures at 2 inches, and then I punched with a 1.75 inch circle punch there. I love circle punches. I have had them for years and years, and they do not let me down. They have not let me down. All right, I'm going to use foam adhesive for the joyful little title there. One of the things I wanted to say again, and I said this in the blog post, but really I had a lot of photos that I wanted to use here. And this might be an idea for you to use later in the month when you may also have a lot of photos, maybe from your Christmas day or other Christmas gatherings that you have when you come together. Really, this is kind of like two spreads. You could count one spread as the full page photo with the front side of this die cut page, and then this spread right here of all the circles could be a secondary spread as well. I'm using it all to tell one story, but I just want you to keep that in mind, that you can have as few or as many stories and or story pages as you want. Some stories have multiple pages and some stories have one photo, right? There's lots of different ways that you can approach this. So what I'm doing right now, I just went ahead and I adhered. I did the initial adhering of all of my photos onto the background white cardstock circles. I'm also starting the process of adhering my 3-inch circles down onto the background die cut page. And then I am also beginning the process of stamping around the outside edge. I decided to go with this green archival ink from Ranger. I am going around the outside edge. I learned as I was doing this that really if I placed it where it almost looked like it was going to be touching the photo, that ended up being the right location. So you might want to play around a little bit with that if you're using the same stamp set. You can also use a straight stamp that you might have in your stash, and you can curve it to fit to the curve of these circles. You can also see that I'm taking my photo and white cardstock little combination there, and I'm running it through the sewing machine because I am that person and I like to have red stitching on everything. You can absolutely do this without adding the stitching, but I like how it looks, and so I went ahead and did that for my own project. I'm also being mindful as I am adhering my circles down that the ones on the inside here are going to need to be trimmed off. So I'm picking photos that can be trimmed off there. I'm still going to run those through the sewing machine just like I'm doing on all the other ones, and then we'll trim it off at the end once I have it actually adhered down on there. I will be using foam adhesive to adhere the white cardstock and the photo onto the background pattern paper just so that it lifts up a little bit off the page. That's a choice you can choose to make or not make for yourself depending upon how thick you may want your album to be. Mine's starting off pretty thick, and so I might need to keep that in mind as I'm going forward and do some thinner pages as well, and or do some pages that only have one page or one photo. So those are things that I keep in mind as I'm going along. One thing that I wished that I would have done on this first page was vary the placement of my stamping on my circle a little bit more. I do that more on the second page, but I decided that was fine anyway. I also go over the thread on a couple of my photos, and that turned out just fine as well. But I really liked the fact that you could place them, you could play around with the placement. I could have also done it a second time on the bottom portion and or handwritten some details, really tiny little details on those circles. That would have been another option as well, but I just chose to only do a partial circle on there. So you could also emboss those. These are the points in the process where you can choose which steps you want to take and which things you might want to eliminate to simplify the process for you. Again, I'm using foam adhesive to adhere those down, the cardstock and pattern paper, or the cardstock and photo portion onto the pattern paper. I love this. I really like how this one turned out. I love the circles, of course, but I also like the variety in the photos. I like having the picture of the TV or the computer with Stranger Things. I like having some of those reflective pictures. I like having a couple food photos. I like having some decor photos, even just from, down at my parents' house. So here's where I'm going to trim off. I'm just going to use scissors to cut off the extra part of this, and then I'm going to use a We Are Memory Keepers hole punch to punch the holes. Gives me a little bit more flexibility when it's a little bit thicker, a little thicker combination versus the 6-hole punch that I normally use. And you'll see me pull that out at some point. Maybe I already did. I think I already did in this video too. So they're just trimming it off, and then I will use the hole punch to punch the photos. And then I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side, essentially adhering down the pattern paper first, then adding on the photo and the white cardstock. So that's kind of what I'm doing there, getting that all set up. Here you can see where I'm using the We Are Memory Keepers hole punch. I love this tool if you're looking for a new tool to add to your stash of stuff. It works great for a variety of different hole sizes there. It's one of those most used tools for me. All right, so I've run all my photos through the sewing machine on that second side, and now I'm going ahead and adding my stamping. You can see on that one right there that I did it. I'm varying the placement a little bit more. Some of them I'm doing just on the top. Some of them I'm doing around the side. Again, you can choose how you want that to work for you, and then I will go ahead and adhere those down and then trim off along the edge. Yeah, that was fun. I liked that green too. I thought that was a good green. I'll get the specific color for you and have that in the supply list. That's actually a part of a little set of smaller inks that are from Ranger. All right, so now I have all of those down on the back side there, so I'm going to trim this one off. You can see that one had a photo of my mom there on the front. Another thing you could do too, if you wanted the 3 pages, like the front side of this one, which is the travel one, and then these other ones to look similar, another thing I could have done is actually just covered up the first page where it says I want to remember with the blue portion, because the design wise, I'm doing a little bit of a different treatment on that. And when I flip it over again, we'll talk about that. What I'm doing right now is actually, well, now I'm going to punch holes in the front of that one. But what I was doing was punching holes on the vellum wreath from the main kit that is going to get stitched onto the pattern paper background. This is the one that I was talking about. It's kind of hard to see. Going to get my holes punched there, though. I jump around. Jumping around is normal. We'll come back to the, oh, looks, I see I already did the stitching. Okay, so I did little roses, little stitched roses on the wreath just to add in some additional color there, and I liked how that turned out. So you can see one of my previous videos for more information on that. On one of my pre-December pages, I did a bunch of little roses on there. So here's my journaling. I went ahead and printed this on my computer or set it up on my computer. I did journaling within the circle shape there, and I'm going to do another little rose stitch here on the top of this one just to link those 2 pages together. I will do one more of these on the first page of this little spread too. I'm using washi tape just to adhere that down on the background, and then I will use foam adhesive to adhere this down on there. The stitching, it's just a little fun extra thing. Again, I kind of like it. And it's something that I did on that one of those initial pages in my album. So it's kind of fun to add them throughout as well. I really like how this turned out, though. That just made me super happy. So this is the side where I was talking about. If you wanted it to have the same treatment as the other ones, you could continue the pattern paper and just place pattern papers on top of those. That could have been an option, but I decided to just leave the I want to remember part and have that open up into the full joyful story on the other side. All right, so I'm thinking about how I'm going to adhere that number 3 on there is basically what I'm doing now. So I'm going to go back to one of the circles that I had punched earlier that says Merry and Bright on that pattern paper. That's, again, one from the extra pattern paper pack that we did. I think the Merry and Bright is super cute. What I decided that I wanted to try was, could I do one of those little stitched roses there on this very small piece of paper, and I was able able to get it to work, but it was a little challenging for my fingers. I actually had Aaron come over and end up holding it down for me. There's one of his fingers while I did the little stitching on it, because it was hard for me to hold it in place and get the whole thing done. You can see where I'm struggling a little bit. That's how we roll. I liked it though. I was happy to have something that felt like it linked those other pages together too. So I actually, when I was working on this and when I was making it, you can see I'm putting red line tape on there. I didn't think about the idea of repeating those circles on this particular side. I think that would have looked great and would have been added nice cohesion. So that would be something just to think about for yourself. We also have a digital version of these die cuts available that you can purchase and then cut on a silhouette if you like the idea of having multiple pages like this of the die cut circles. That would be another option as well. Or you might have one from a previous year in your December daily stash too, because it's a die that we have used before with those circles. All right, and so now I'm starting to put this into my album so I can see what it looks like all together. I still need to adhere my full page photo to the back of my previous day's story there. So I'm going to use rolling adhesive for that. This is rolling adhesive from scrapbook.com. It's my favorite rolling adhesive that I use all the time. And I am going to adhere my photo directly onto the back of yesterday's story, my story number 2. And then I'm going to use an X-Acto knife to go ahead and trim along the edges. It's almost never perfect when I cut these out, and so I almost always use a metal ruler and an X-Acto knife to trim off any extras I have from one page to another. So I'll be doing that, then I am going to punch the holes, and then I will wrap this one up for today. So remember, lots of different ways that you could take the ideas that I shared in this video today and make them work for your own story. And you might spread it into multiple stories. You might use this later in the month. Lots of different ways that you can take these and run with it and have some fun with maybe circle punches that you might have in your stash. So there's yesterday's, and then I'm going to use my 6-hole punch here to repunch those holes so that I can actually add the full page photo. I decided not to do anything on top of the full page photo and just let it be as it was. It is a shot that just needs to I just wanted it to be as it was. We've got the 3 there that then flows into my Thanksgiving story. All right, guys, we'll see you back here tomorrow.